What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and I wanted to go into Colorado. I already did go into Colorado, but as I said when I went into it, it was a preview, and as they say in the NFL games, things are subject to change. So, I initially liked Oregon to cover just because I don't know. I just assume that the public's all over Colorado. There's a lot of people telling me like, no, that the people that think it's real, I think Oregon's gonna win. And then when I went into the ESPN comments, it might have been 50-50. I was expecting, just because of the upside to picking Colorado, I thought everybody would be on them. Also, I've gone into before with Deion. I don't really think they mind paying out the public, especially because of live action. And live action is the reason I'm taking this game. So, if you guys missed, we just went over. So I'm going to go into this in 2 seconds. And I think I got my audio kink worked out with my phone. I was having audio issues going in and out. I think it's more just a matter of my screen when I'm using the interface. But I want to go into something because this is something that it's impossible for me to do ahead of time. But it's a reason I pick certain games. So we did pretty good tonight. We had, if you watched my last video, we had the under, and I had Virginia winning straight up. Now, what happens is, this game wasn't a perfect example. They tied it at one point, and it was pretty close to even odds. After their penalty, it wound up being not so even, where it was basically back to pre-game odds. But you'll get lots of opportunities in games where you'll have an opportunity to hedge and guarantee yourself a profit. Again, this game, it wasn't exactly the case. It definitely could have been. But on many occasions, we'll get that. I know a few people caught Virginia at like plus 600 or something. So they didn't get them, obviously. But if you grab them at 600 and then it gets to even odds, then obviously you're guaranteed a profit, or at the worst you break even. So that's my logic with this Colorado game. I genuinely think live action is where it's at, and for that reason, I like Colorado. That's my pick. So I know a lot of people probably saw my video. I did it not that long ago. It was only like 2-3 days ago, and you can see I had Oregon covering Colorado. Now it's a leg 2, so we can be a little risky on this one. And since we're getting between 650 and 700 depending on your book, that's what I'm going to go with. So you can call it intuition, my wrestling logic. Here we got Pat McAfee, from SmackDown. He's like the one guy that they keep saying isn't doubting. Hey, like 112. That's the Super Bowl backwards. You see that number a lot. I don't think it's a coincidence. But San Francisco winning, kind of, not a lot, but it made me think, or is Deion going to follow suit the last 2 weeks? He won and all of his NFL teams won. Is it a precursor? And I do think they could not cover a spread and then still go into USC, and it won't make much of a difference. They still have a lot of primetime matchups. So I'm not saying that, they have to cover the spread to be competitive. But I'm picking them to win, and I am thinking more and more that it makes sense for them to cover. Getting blown out, people wouldn't really expect it. Some people are thinking it, though. A lot of people are saying, and I said, if it's real and they played that game against CSU and barely won, there's no way they're stopping Bo Nix. But I think they might want to start building a narrative. Oh, wow, Colorado twice this year was 20-point dogs, and they won both games. They won without Hunter, all these different things. I do think Hunter might be an excuse for them to lose. But, again, since I use my system the way I do, we have 3 cracks at it. And since Deion has proven people wrong every step of the way, and you talk about doubters. He's like, oh, people doubt us. if you really think about it, TCU, yes, people were doubting. But week 2, week 3, nobody was doubting him. This is a week where people are, like, I would say this is the first week where Colorado, and they're using the word doubt if you notice, where Colorado is indeed getting doubted. So Deion's narrative would make sense if he said, oh man, nobody thought we could beat Oregon. He would actually be right for once. Instead of creating narratives, nobody thought we were going to beat Nebraska. Everybody had him beating Nebraska. Everybody had him beating Colorado State just by more. So, again, there's not going to be a lot of teams where I feel obligated to say, you know what, I think I was off with my original assessment. But Deion's going to be one of them because I look for certain things. And for me, the fact that so many people in the public are actually like looking past the hype and they're like, yeah, Oregon's going to win. I think there's a good chance Colorado wins. Now, because I have terrible luck, what this probably means is Colorado is going to cover and not win. You know, because that's just the crap that happens to me. But I don't care. I'm going for the win anyway. The money line, I know it feels like fool's gold. It feels like a sucker's bet if I've ever seen one. But we could have made that case in week 1. We could have made that case in week 2. Now, week 1 they already paid out, so the question is, are they going to pay it out again? I do think they're going to pay out. You have to remember Colorado is going to be heavy dogs in a lot of games this year. So, I personally think it makes sense for them to beat Oregon, go into USC undefeated. Maybe they're running the same script in the NFL because we got the Cowboys-Niners, 2 Deion teams, that are probably going to meet up with each other undefeated. So Colorado, USC meeting up undefeated would be pretty interesting in my opinion. And I think we might get that. So then they're both 4-0. Then a USC can beat them. And then they can have they're going to have Washington. They're going to have UCLA. They're going to have some nice teams where they're going to have plus odds. So they're going to win some of them. So as I said in the beginning of the year, I had them winning about 8 games. I don't think they'll get 9. They could, I guess, but I have them winning about 8 games. Vegas has them at 6-6, which is very interesting. Almost seems too good to be true, taking the over on that win. But again, maybe a lot of the public just isn't believing it. I don't know how you can't believe it when you got 2 Heisman candidates. Like, one's injured, obviously, and this whole Deion mania and the fact that he brought over so many talented players. I get they look a lot like a high school team at times, but that's the Pac-12. I went into this last year. I went into how the Pac-12 is completely different than any other conference. Just bad tackling, high-scoring games, all the quarterbacks are good, and sure enough, now the analysts are like, oh, look at the Pac-12 making up 30-40% of the ranked teams. It's because they've been pushing the Pac-12 so obviously. Last year, it was they had DTR who went nuts. Penix, who's still playing, went nuts. You had, obviously, Caleb. Now you got Shador. I don't think it's a coincidence. That's why I pick the over on these games a lot. There are certain conferences where it just seems like they push different things. The Pac-12 is like aired out, it seems like. So, part of me wants to play some props, but I don't want to get too crazy. I will say, just because I like Jimmy Horn Jr. a lot, because I think Weaver's going to get his, but he just went off. People are going to pound him. You don't have Hunter. I think that opens the door big time for Jimmy Horn Jr. Whether you want to take him to get like 100 yards and a touchdown, I think he can have a very good game. So I do like him, and I like Sanders. I'm not sure he's going to go nuts, but it would be interesting if they made this a defensive game. I can't see that happening. I think they really want to portray. I think they really want to set up the narrative for Caleb versus Shador. So I think you have to have him and Nix kind of go back and forth, and both of them look well. Specifically Sanders. I think he's got to look good. So I like Sanders over on his props. I know it seems obvious, but Sanders and Horn are the 2 guys that I'm going to be playing myself. I'll probably have Sanders. I might go a little more on the conservative side, have him throw for like 300 yards instead of 400, and then maybe Horn to get like 80 yards and a touchdown. That should pay. I know it'll be plus odds, pretty good plus odds. So something along those lines. Again, it's not going to hurt to take Weaver. I just personally like Horn. Edwards is another guy I like. I have a feeling they might slow it down, do a couple more runs. Oregon's defense is pretty bad too, so I have a feeling we might see more runs in this game from Sanders and Edwards. Also, for people that pound Sanders, like to get 4 or 5 touchdowns, like I said, I'll probably stick with 3. He might run one in. So I would pay attention. I think they're going to have a good bit of rushing yards compared to normal. And I think their best receiver is going to be Horn instead of Weaver. So those are just a couple, nothing crazy, but just predictions that I have as far as props. Oregon, it's tough to tell. Whatever I say about Bo Nix, he does the opposite. So you might as well just fade me. I have a feeling he's going to have a really good game because they want to have these two kind of have a back and forth slugfest. Don't forget Sanders. He might stay. He might go. They're not going to have a lot of opportunities to play each other. So the few opportunities they have, I think they're going to make them take advantage of them. So I think they'll both do well, but I still think it might not be one of his crazier games. And Edwards, I can see him maybe having the best game of the season that he's had so far. But most importantly, yes, my official play is Colorado to win. Like I said, a few things have gone into me liking this. I just noticed the game's at 3:30, and they're both 3-0, so 3-0, 3-0. So I wonder if we can do anything with that, huh? I guess not. I don't see anything that would really mean much. But again, I think those things it's hard for that to be a coincidence. But I just noticed that too. But yeah, so I like Deion. I think if it was any other team, any other coach, getting this kind of odds. One thing I found interesting, and this is how Vegas just robs people. Colorado's a 21-point dog, and last I checked, they were getting 650, 700, depending on the book. I saw like 2 other teams that were 20-point dogs, and they were getting like plus 800. So it is funny that they're juicing the money line on Colorado. That might mean something, or it's just because, like I said, anybody taking Colorado is probably taking the money line. So we really just have to hope like people are pounding the Oregon spread and live. Don't forget, they can make money live. So I would not be surprised if something like Colorado goes up by a touchdown, then they give Oregon even odds live. People start pounding Oregon, or Colorado goes down, and people with a lot of money just start piling into what they think is a sure thing. So with live action, they can definitely make up for it. So I'm not as apprehensive as I used to be about taking what seems to be something they would never pay out, again, because of the live action. So you guys can let me know what you think. Like I said, I think this 6% is kind of to throw us off. It does not seem... Again, I've never seen... And I get the rankings can be a little weird, but I've never seen 2 teams relatively close in ranks, both undefeated, and a 94-6 split. I've never seen it that much, so maybe it's so people see this and they're thinking, oh, again, if for the people that think it's real, they're looking at this and they're like, yep, okay, like Colorado's outmatched. So I'm hoping the Hunter thing isn't to make an excuse. I personally am hoping that I'm right about my Remember the Titans script. Well, it's actually the Replacements meets Remember the Titans meets Friday Night Lights. But, the guy gets injured and then the team maybe comes out and plays and dedicates their victory to him. I'm hoping we see something like that. That is very Deion-esque. And to be honest, even when he was out there, he looked pretty bad. I'm not getting what all the hype's about. Like he was letting Horton just completely dice him up all game. So I had to be on purpose because if this guy's this good, I watched Horton. He's a good player, but he should not be doing what he did to Hunter. He just completely embarrassed him. So I found that interesting anyway. So I watched the game and I'm watching the first half and just okay, Hunter doesn't seem to be that good. So obviously he is. I just didn't watch the other games. But my point is, I think they can make anybody look amazing, and I think they're going to continue the story, make them 4-0. And with that logic, like I said, after the game, I'm going to wait to pick the rest of my Deion teams. If Colorado wins, then it's going to flip a lot of my picks on their head. That's why I didn't go official with them yet. The Ravens game, the Cowboys game, and the other 2 teams he played for, the Falcons and the Commanders. Because I think it just makes sense. We see what happens with Deion before we pick those games. So his first team won. They were a pretty big favorite, so nothing crazy there. If he wins, that'll be really interesting. So yeah, that's my pick. Is Deion Sanders prime wins his second game against the spread, or not against the spread. His second game as 20-point dogs. And like I said, it's going to be a leg 2, so I'm not too worried about it. We closed a couple leg 3s tonight, so we're doing a good job closing our sequences. If this doesn't come through, then I have a good leg 3 I'll plug in for it. But yeah, I just wanted everybody to have this pick, because I know initially I was leaning with Colorado not covering, just because I thought the public would be all over them. But that really doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like the public is split at best. And without Hunter, there's a good chance I think the public, again, live, game doesn't start off too good, I can see them slamming Oregon. So hopefully we do well. Like 3 so far picking Deion. We did do good, like I said, in the Discord. And even in the my video, I did a video going over Colorado, and then my very next video was a live video, and they were down by like 7. And in that video, I said, there's no way they're losing this game. So sometimes live is the best way, because you can kind of see where they're going with it, and then you can kind of gauge, okay, this team is definitely selling here, or this team is definitely, they're keeping them in it. And that's exactly what Colorado State did. They kept Colorado in it just enough. So if we see any of that happening with this game, we'll be able to make adjustments, hedge, whatever the case may be. And if Colorado gets off to an early lead, then that's even better, because then we can immediately, if you're one of them that just profit, you can almost immediately hedge. They're going to have to get up to a pretty decent lead, about a 2-score lead. But getting these pregame odds, hedging will not be hard at all. So I think we do good. Again, we have about 10 college plays tomorrow, if you hadn't seen them. And these are all plays based off of metrics, okay? Just against the spread metrics. And nothing crazy, but so far we are like 2-0, just picking spread metrics. The 2 games I picked just spread metrics was Georgia State over Coastal Carolina, because Coastal Carolina was undefeated on the spread. But I went ahead and took Georgia State to win. And they did get it done, as you can see. And that one profited nice, because it was a leg 3 at plus 220. So I got greedy. I didn't go with the spread. I went with the win. And then the other one that we just picked was the under on NC State. Virginia was 3-0 on the over. So that was the only other one we picked off the metric. I picked Virginia to beat them, but that wasn't anything to do with the spread. I just took it because I thought it was a good play. But all of these games, Nevada, Michigan, Alabama, all of these teams, one or the other, is undefeated or winless against the spread. So Ole Miss is undefeated against the spread. And you throw in the fact that Bama looked like hot garbage, I think there's a good chance Bama covers. Vandy, I think Kentucky's I think Kentucky's undefeated against the spread, and so on and so forth. So that's why I picked these games. Now I'm not saying they're all going to win, but usually we do pretty good, because again, you're not going to have that many teams rolling into week 5, 6 undefeated or winless against the spreads. So those are my picks. I'll be doing more football ones, of course, but very curious to see how Colorado's does tomorrow. So take care, everybody, and happy earnings.